Hello and welcome to this overview of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions Postdoctoral Fellowships call, which is brought to you by the Irish Marie Skłodowska-Curie Office. The IMSCO is supported by the Irish Research Council and jointly operated with the Irish Universities Association. Our mission is to support the research community in Ireland across all sectors and disciplines in applying to the MSCA calls and, of course, in implementing MSCA projects. Before proceeding, please note that the information presented within this overview doesn't supersede the content of the Horizon Europe MSCA work programme for 2023 to 2025, or indeed the supporting documents like the proposal templates and the guides for applicants. Interested applicants are advised to read the work programme and these associated documents before starting their application. The MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowships Scheme funds individual training fellowships to support excellent postdoctoral researchers across all disciplines. The main objectives are to foster excellence through the implementation of research projects, to enhance the creative and innovative potential of researchers holding a PhD, and that's via advanced training on transferable skills and career development. Other objectives are to stimulate international, intersectoral and interdisciplinary mobility of researchers and to expose researchers to the non-academic sector. In terms of the key features of the call, the postdoctoral fellowships applications are mono-beneficiary, and this means that the application is jointly prepared by a pre-identified researcher and a host organisation in a European member state or Horizon Europe associated country. The call is open to all types of organisations across all sectors. It is a bottom-up call, and this means that the applicant chooses the topic of the research, and it is open to all disciplines. Proposals are submitted to one of 8 scientific panels, and you can find these panels in the work programme. So applicants can apply for one of 2 different types of fellowships. The first is the European fellowships, where researchers of any nationality can apply for funding to undergo a fellowship of between 1 to 2 years in a host organisation within a member state or a country associated to Horizon Europe. The second type is the global fellowships, and this is open to nationals or long-term residents of European member states or countries associated to Horizon Europe. The global fellowship includes an outgoing phase of between 1 to 2 years in a third country, followed by a 1-year return phase to a host organisation within a European member state or a country associated to Horizon Europe. Applicants have the option of including a non-academic placement in their proposal, which would allow for additional funding of up to 6 months at the end of their fellowship. Within the postdoctoral fellowships, researchers can opt to undergo secondments and/or a non-academic placement to another organisation. Secondments are optional. They can take place in any sector and in any country worldwide, but the cumulative duration of the secondments in a fellowship cannot exceed 1/3 of the fellowship duration. For a European fellowship, secondments can take place at any time during the project. However, for global fellowships, secondments can only take place during the outgoing phase. Researchers can choose to spend up to 3 months at the European host at the start of their fellowship, but this counts towards the maximum 1/3 secondment duration. Applicants can opt to include a non-academic placement, which takes place at the end of the fellowship. This is where they can spend up to 6 months in a non-academic organisation based in an EU member state or a Horizon Europe associated country, and additional funding is provided for the placement. Planned secondments and placements should be included in the proposal, and their relevance and their quality and added value will be assessed by the evaluators. But note that proposals will not be penalised for not including a secondment or a non-academic placement. Specific eligibility conditions apply for both the individual applicants and the participating organisations. The beneficiary, or the European host organisation, applying to the call must be a legal entity based within an EU member state or a country associated to Horizon Europe. The beneficiary signs the grant agreement with the Commission. The beneficiary employs the researcher and hosts and supervises them at their premises during the fellowship. For global fellowships, a host organization in a third country is required to host the researcher for the outgoing phase. This must be a legal entity in a third country, and a letter of commitment from that organization must be submitted as part of the proposal. For researchers wanting to undergo a non-academic placement, this must be in a non-academic organization, which is different from the main European host, and it must be in an EU member state or a country associated to Horizon Europe. For researchers, the eligibility criteria includes the following. European fellowships are open to researchers of any nationality, but global fellowships are only open to nationals or long-term residents of EU member states or countries associated to Horizon Europe. A mobility rule applies to the researcher. This means that the researcher must not have resided or carried out their main activity, so their work or their studies, etc., in the country of the beneficiary, if it's a European fellowship, or in the country of the host organization for the outgoing phase, if it's a global fellowship, for more than 12 months in the 36 months before the call deadline. Researchers must be in possession of a PhD by the call deadline. They do not necessarily need to have graduated, but they must have successfully defended their thesis, and it must be an unconditional pass with no further corrections or amendments required. Researchers should not have more than 8 years full-time equivalent research experience following their PhD. Note that this is not calculated in calendar years, but rather the cumulative time spent conducting research since their PhD. Exceptions apply for things like career breaks, periods of long-term leave, such as sick leave or maternity or paternity leave, also time spent working in non-research roles, or research in third countries for those reintegrating to Europe. Note that there is a nationality restriction for the latter there. Applicants are advised to consult the Commission's assessment tool included here to determine if they meet this eligibility criterion. Finally, researchers who receive a score of less than 70% in the previous postdoctoral fellowships call cannot resubmit the same proposal with the same host organization, and for global fellowships, also the associated partner hosting the outgoing phase, to the following year's call. The proposed beneficiary must ensure compliance with the admissibility and eligibility criteria before submitting the proposal and must maintain all supporting documentation. We have included a couple of eligibility examples here to explain this further. The first case here is for a European fellowship. In this case, it is an Irish researcher who was awarded a PhD in 2019 in the United Kingdom and who remained resident there. The researcher wants to apply for a European fellowship in the field of nanotechnology together with a host institution in Ireland. In this case, the researcher was awarded a PhD before the call deadline. They have less than 8 years research experience since award of their PhD. They have not resided in Ireland for more than 12 months in the previous 3 years, so they would be considered eligible on those grounds. In the second case, for a global fellowship, there is an Indian researcher living in Ireland for the previous 3 years. They were awarded their PhD in 2023. They want to apply for a global fellowship in the field of psychology with a European host in France, and they want to do their outgoing phase in the US. In this case, the researcher was awarded a PhD before the call deadline. They have less than 8 years research experience since award of their PhD. They have not spent more than 12 months in the United States in the previous 3 years, but there is a question mark over whether they meet the long-term residence criteria. In such case, it's not clear if the researcher is eligible. The MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowships call follows a prescriptive budget model where the budget is based on unit costs. Budget table is included in the work programme with additional explanation for each category. But in short, there are 2 categories. The first includes the contributions for the researchers, such as the living and mobility allowance, and possibly a family allowance, depending on the researcher's circumstances. And the second category is the institutional unit contributions and includes research, training, and networking contributions and management and indirect contributions. Note that the researcher's salary are gross amounts, and these are, note that the researcher's allowances shown here are gross amounts, and these are subject to employer and employee statutory deductions. A country correction coefficient applies to the living allowance, and that's in order to ensure equal treatment and purchasing power parity for all researchers. Note that for Ireland, this is 136.4%. But if it is a researcher applying for a global fellowship, then two different country correction coefficients apply. One for the European host and one for the third country hosting the outgoing phase. A full list of the country correction coefficients are available in the work programme. Proposals are evaluated through a single-stage application through the European Commission's Funding and Tender Opportunities portal. The application is composed of two parts. In Part A, all information related to the applicants is entered. This includes information on the researcher, the supervisor, the host organisation, and also the secondment, placement, and placement hosts. Applicants are required to answer the call-specific questions in Part A and to complete any fields regarding eligibility requirements. Part B consists of two parts. This is a narrative part composed of two PDF files, and the templates for these are available on the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal. In Part B1, this is the core of the proposal and includes the description of the action. There is a maximum of 10 pages allowed. Any additional pages will be disregarded by the experts. The questions are based around excellence, impact, and implementation criteria. And Part B2 then contains the applicant researcher's CV, information on the host organisation, ethical and security information, environmental considerations, and the letter of commitment if it's a global fellowship application. A postdoctoral fellowships proposal will be evaluated by experts on the basis of the award criteria excellence, impact, and implementation. Under excellence, reviewers evaluate the quality and pertinence of the research and innovation objectives, the methodology, including the gender and diversity dimension in the research and open science, the quality of the supervision, training, and transfer of knowledge, and the quality of the researcher's professional experience and skills. The proposal is reviewed for the potential impact on the researcher's career perspectives and employability, for the impacts from the proposed dissemination, exploitation, and communication activities, and the project's potential to deliver scientific, economic, and societal impact. Finally, the quality and efficiency of the implementation is evaluated through the work plan, assessing the risks and the effort assigned to work packages, and the quality and capacity of the host institutions, including hosting arrangements. Each criterion has a different weighting, with excellence accounting for 50% of the final score, impact 30%, and implementation 20%, and the funding threshold is 70%. To finish, presented here is the call calendar showing the dates for both the 2024 and 2025 postdoctoral fellowships calls. Finally, a reminder that there are resources to help you prepare a proposal to the call. You will find these on our website at iua.ie/Marie Curie. Thank you for listening and best of luck with your preparations.